أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ولديمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشافي نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيتي الطيبين الطاهرين معصومين صادقين أما بعد فقال الله تعالى في الكتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والنفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Inshallah, if we can give a loud salawat for the Imam of our time as we send our deepest condolences to him for the loss of all of his relatives and as we commemorate what happened at Karbala. The verse that I began a few seconds ago to begin this Majlis is a verse that we're very, very familiar with. During our Eid prayers, we say a part of this verse, a part of the chapter that this verse is in. And this verse says something very important. And if we're cognizant, if we understand what this verse is saying, it is the key to why it is that we are here at this time of the year for every year. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us that he swears, it's him who swears by the soul, and he himself who created it perfect. And then he, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taught it what was right and what was wrong. And then he says, those are successful who purified that soul that he created. This purification of the soul, this getting things right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this rectifying ourselves and following what is right is what Ashura, what Muharram, what Arba'een is all about. If you can understand this part, then everything else dealing with Islam becomes very easy. But the question becomes, how do we purify that soul? What is the process of that purification? How do we turn ourselves from being evil and doing wrong into those individuals who are going to do right? Into individuals who, insha'Allah, will be the soldiers of Imam Sahib Asri wa Zaman, Ajalallahu Ta'ala Fahajru Sharif. Tonight, insha'Allah, I want to talk about what happened at Karbala. I want to talk about why we come to these places and cry. I want to talk about why we beat our chests. I want to talk about why we sit on the carpet and get some words to take away that would hopefully get us better. What I'm going to say to you tonight isn't anything new, but I want to give you something and give you a different way of looking at it so that, insha'Allah, you can begin to purify the soul. Our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he was returning from a battle, one of his companions said to him, Alhamdulillah, Ya Rasulullah, we have just completed the great jihad. Our Prophet said, you have not completed the great jihad. What you have completed is the lesser jihad. He said, the great jihad is the jihad of the soul, the jihad of the self. if you understand what happened on the day of Ashura in Karbala, you would understand that each and every person that was on the plains of Karbala for that war had a jihad. Everyone. The righteous had a jihad. The evildoers had a jihad. Even the babies had a jihad. And what happened that was so beautiful at Karbala is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had taken what happens in mankind totally and put it in this little place on this planet at this specific time. He showed each and every one of us every situation that life has to offer, and if we study it, we will never be on the wrong side, like some of those who were at Karbala. Why do I say that everything was represented there? As I look around this room, and I know what is represented here, I think about what was represented at Karbala. You had babies at Karbala. You had toddlers at Karbala. You had preteens at Karbala. You had teenagers at Karbala. You had young adults at Karbala. And you had older adults at Karbala. Each of them at a different stage in life. And each and every one of those individuals had their own jihad to fight. The beautiful thing about what happened at Karbala, the beautiful thing that happened on Ashura, was that if we, as Muslims, those of us who say that we are followers of Ahlul Bayt, were to begin to see ourselves in those people who were there, we would find that at every stage of our life, we have an example of how it is that we should go about having this jihad of our own selves. Sometimes when we talk about what happened at Karbala, we get to, and this happened, and that happened, and they went to war, and they fought, and they did this, and they did that, and we cry because they were so valiant. But what was it that was within them that allowed them to go and take part in that small jihad? They had to first defeat whatever shaitan, whatever thing that was within them, the outer shaitan. They had to defeat that too in order to put themselves in a position to say, I am ready to die for my Imam. And it wasn't exempt from anyone who was there. I want to begin by talking about the young people. We have Aun. We have Mohammad. We have Qasim. Preteens and teenagers. What do we see in our society with our preteens and teenagers? Do we believe that our young people right now today, outside of this situation, outside of us talking about it right now, are they willing to make the sacrifices that Aun, Muhammad, and Qasim made? Sometimes as parents, we go to our children and we say, hey, give me your phone. They don't want to give up the phone. Wait, just give me 5 more minutes. If they like 2K, if they like Fortnite, if they like these games, you tell them, go to bed. Stop playing the game. Do your homework. Some of them are like, no. 1 more minute, I'm almost there. These young men were no different than Aun, Muhammad, and Qasim. They like to play. They like to have fun. They wanted to live their lives. It's easy for us as adults to be dismissive of children when they have ideas because we say, what have they done in life? What do they have to hold on to in life? But when we go back and we look at Aun and Muhammad and Qasim, they understood something. They understood that the life that they had was not a life of their own. They had an example of what was going to happen to them before they took part in what they were going to do. Remember, all of the men who died in Karbala, except for 2, died before them. Abu Fadl Abbas and Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam were the last to die. So Aun and Qasim and Muhammad, they had to think within themselves, we are young people. What do we know about war? We haven't lived life yet. We're young. All of these thoughts, this is human nature. They were not outside of the realm of human nature. But what they had that many of us as adults don't have is a yaqeen, a certainty in the fact that Imam Hussein is my Imam, that Allah is my Lord, that Muhammad was the prophet. And I am not going out here to protect my uncle, but I am going out here to protect my Imam. They had to struggle within themselves to say, at this time, my young life is not my own. It belongs to Allah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And they went to war. And we cry for them. And we slap our chests for them because of their bravery. But before they had that bravery, they had to destroy anything that was in them that would make them afraid to go out and do what they had to do. Salawat. Who else was represented on the plains of Karbala? We had young adults. We read about the story of Wahab, and we know about Ali Akbar. But I want to talk about Wahab for 1 second, inshallah. Because what situation was Wahab in? Wahab had just gotten married. Wahab was a newlywed. Wahab had a bride next to him. Wahab didn't have a fight here. Wahab was with his mother and his wife returning home. They were about to start life. But Wahab's mother knew how Wahab came into existence. She knew that this man that they were trying to come and kill made a prayer for her and her husband to have a child because they could not have any children, and she told her son about this prayer. For the young people in here, if you're a Wahab, if you just got married, if you're with a woman who you love and you want to be with for the remainder of your life, do you give your life up at this particular point in time? He had a struggle. He had a jihad. He had to overcome something. Not only that, but he had to convince his wife that he is going to end his life before they could start their lives together. Who does that? Is that fair? We say, Labbaika ya Hussein, Labbaika ya Hussein. But when the circumstances are right in front of us, when the challenge is there, are we going to let go of the things that we want and go towards the things that will please our Lord? Wahab's wife, she's with the man that she loves. She is ready to have children. She's ready to push forward in her life. But that's not going to happen now. How does she feel? she had her own personal jihad. In order for Wahab to do what he did, she had to overcome what she had going on. Ali Akbar was like many of you handsome young men who hadn't gotten married yet, but who was ready to be married, who was a very loving individual, who took care of the poor, who always wanted to give people food. He was a handsome young man. So handsome, in fact, that when the people would miss seeing Rasulullah, they would go and they would look at Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar could have went on in life. He could have started a family. He could have walked away from everything in Karbala. He was on his way. He had everything going for him. But he understood something. He understood that this life that I have is not my own, but this life belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What about the older men? The mature men? Their lives didn't start when they made it to Karbala. These men were fathers. They were business owners. Some of them were grandfathers. They were uncles. They had responsibilities. Many of them didn't travel with their families. Many of them didn't have this idea that I'm never going to go back home to my family. They had a jihad. And when given the opportunity to walk away, to turn around, and not have any penalty put on them, they had to overcome what was in themselves in order to say that I am here for my Imam. How many of us are willing to do that? How many of us look at this thing and say that my life is worth the sacrifice for my Imam? If you hadn't reached that point yet, how do you reach that point? Here's the difficult one for me. All of it's difficult. But here's the one that sometimes gets overlooked. On the plains of Karbala, there were mothers there. There were wives there. Wahab's mother is there. Her son just gets married. I'm a grandfather now. And there's a certain excitement that comes along with, I am going to become a grandfather. Think about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Think about how he was with his grandchildren, particularly Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. How much did he love them? So much so that he said that these are not my grandchildren, these are my sons. This young lady who was ready, who married her son off to a good woman, decided that she was going to have a conversation with her son. For all the mothers who are in here, for all the mothers who may hear this, how do you approach your son and tell your son who was just married that, son, I want you to go and fight for this man? What type of jihad did she have within herself? All she wanted for her child was a future. She raised him up to a certain point so that he would be able to carry on. But now you're not even thinking about war. You're not even thinking about losing a life. You're thinking about creating life. You get to a point and you send your son out to war. What type of woman is this? What type of faith does she have? When her son goes out to the battlefield and her son's head gets severed from his body, and they throw the head at the mother, but she throws it back out and says, whatever I have given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't want it back. You keep that. What type of mother, what type of woman does this? It is a woman who has conquered this jihad al-akbar, the war against the self. I think about Zainab. It's difficult for me, as it should be for everyone. Because here's a woman who's there with her brothers, with her nephews, and with her children. Her children come to her thinking that they're going to have a conversation with their mother. But their mother turns it around and has a conversation with them. What mother wants to go to her child and say, on tomorrow, there's going to be a battle. And in this battle, I want you to fight to protect your imam. I want you to represent, as your father said before we left him, both your grandfathers, Jaffar Itiyah and Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. What's the psychology of this woman? It goes out of the window. Because no rational mother would put her children out there to be killed, to be martyred. She had a jihad. Are we willing to make the jihad that Zainab made? Rubab. All of these mothers that are there. The mother of Ali Ashkar. There's a dilemma. Do I keep my baby here with me where I know my baby is going to die? Or do I chance my baby with men who have massacred every man that was here? Do I put my child in their hands? How does his mother go to the father and say, take my baby? I can't feed my child. I have no milk. I have no water. I have no sustenance for my baby. Take my baby and do what you have to do in order for them to just give my baby something to drink. What kind of faith is this? This is a jihad. This is a struggle. This is the greater jihad. Because you're not even worried about yourself at this point. You're worried about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given to you, and you're trusting that your husband would be able to deliver what you can't deliver. When we say Labbaika Ya Hussein, are we thinking about the jihad that we have to make that come true? If we're spreading tears, are we shedding tears in the hopes that some point in time that we will be able to turn around when our turn comes to pick up that flag and move forward? Or are we too busy in our daily lives to even create a situation where we're bettering ourselves. On the other side of the fence now, there are individuals who are also fighting the jihad. You have the ones who are being led by Shaitan himself, who knew who Imam Hussein was, who've heard what the Prophet said about Imam Hussein. The Imam said, have you not heard Rasulullah say that I am from Hussein and Hussein is from me? Have you not heard that when my grandfather would walk through the bazaar, through the souk, when he would have me and my brother on his shoulders, the people would say, what a wonderful mount these kids have. But the Prophet would say, no, it is the mount who is honored by those who are riding. They are not like me. They are not like most of you. They don't understand Arabiya. These people understood the language. There was no confusion. There was nothing lost in translation. At that point in time, they had the opportunity to have a jihad al-akbar, to erase all the evil that they had done and get on the side of the right. One man and a few with him decided that what is better for me in the akhirah is better than what is here in the dunya. We have Hur ibn Ziyad ibn Shukran. In the middle of the storm, he tried to sleep at night. He tried to rationalize what is right and what is wrong. He began to think. Most of us, we don't think. Most of us, we go with the flow. Many of us, we will say the majority of the people are doing this. Let me stay with the majority. I am safe with the majority. Hur had to have a jihad al-akbar. He was safe. He could protect his family. He could go home again. More than likely, he wouldn't have had to fight like those who went out before because he was a commander in the army. Instead of him saying, let me be safe, he said, let me be right. He said, allow me to purify my soul so that I could be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me move from the side of Jahiliyyah and move to the side of righteousness. How many of us are willing to make that jihad? There isn't one person who was there at Karbala who didn't have this jihad. The soldier who takes orders. He could say, my excuse is, I was following orders. But at some point in time, they have to say, does this go against the book that I say I believe in? Does this go against my Lord who has given me this book? Does this go against everything that I know that is right? At the middle of all of this, there was one individual who had to bear the brunt of everybody's decision making. You see, we think about Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and we think about those final moments. We think about when he was hit with all the arrows. We think about when he was lying on the ground. We think about when Shimmer came. But what happened prior to that? I want you to, inshallah, I want you to put yourselves in the place of Imam Hussein. I want you to think about the situation that our Imam found himself in. I want you to think about how his friend Habib came. He had to escape from Kufa to come. His friend that he had his whole life. His friend who was there with his family. His friend who said, I know what's going to happen when I get to Imam Hussein. Do you think that our Imam wanted his friend to go and die? The Imam in his heart, he's like, go back to your family. Go and take care of them. How can he be responsible for this man coming to die for him? Think about our Imam when he had Aun and Mohammad and Qasim come to him. I am an uncle. Many of you young men will become uncles if you're not already uncles. Many of you young women will become aunties if you're not already aunties. We love our nieces and our nephews. We kiss them. We clean them. We prepare things for them. How do we go to our nieces and our nephews and say to them, it's okay for you to go out here and fight in this war? We would give everything that we have in order for them not to have to go out there. Imam Hussein, during this whole situation, he had to live with the decisions that Aun and Qasim and Muhammad made. There weren't easy decisions for him to make. Think about when he had to make the decision for Qasim. He wasn't going to allow Qasim to go out to war. It took a letter from his brother that allowed him to let his brother's son go out to fight for him. This is a jihad. Let him go on his own way. When he looked at his son Ali Akbar, and he looked at his son's face and he saw his grandfather. When he heard his son call Yadan, they said he sounded like Rasulullah. How can you send someone who looks like Rasulullah out to battle? How can you send someone who you love to battle? Imam Hussein, the jihad that he had, this great jihad that he had, not going out to fight the people. He had to pick up his baby. Which one of you would take your baby to your enemies? Which one of you has that type of love? Which one of you are willing to make that type of sacrifice? Do you even know what it takes to make that type of sacrifice? Do you understand what the anguish that this man had to go through? Let me help you to understand the anguish that he had to go through. The seerah, the history says that Imam Hussein, when he went to the battle, at the beginning of the day of Ashura, his hair was black like yours. But by the time the end of the day, his hair was gray like mine. He aged that much in a day because of the responsibility and the accountability that he had on that day. His Jihad al-Akbar. As the Imam, he had to allow things to play out the way they played. He had to be the one who followed the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had to be the one who, after everyone died, he had to go back to the parents and he had to console them. How do you go to Zainab and say, my sister, I am so sorry that your children had to die? How do you go to your wife and say, our baby has been shot with an arrow? How do you assume that the men go out and not be able to go back to their parents? How do you get to a point to where you know that people are dying and you know that you're responsible? Brothers and sisters, I ask one last thing. With this Jihad al-Akbar, how many of you think about the fact that you were a baby like Ali Ashkar? You were children like Aun and Mohammad. You were young adults. You were teenagers. You were grown people. Karbala is about your lifetime. And it's about showing you how to become the best at doing Jihad al-Akbar. If every day is Ashura and every land is Karbala, we have to stop doing Muharram and Saffar to begin to cry and beat our chest. This is something that we do on a daily basis. Because once we get to the point to where we can do the Jihad al-Akbar, then we could be like Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, who when he went out to the battlefield, he stood up and he said, I am the grandson of the one who you know as your prophet. I am the son of the first man who accepted Islam. I am the grandson of the first woman who accepted Islam. Have you ever heard of me usurping someone's rights? Have you ever heard of me misrepresenting Quran? Have you ever heard of me committing a sin? And everyone said, no. He said, so why do you come to kill me? They said, we come to kill you because of what your fathers had done. If these people did the Jihad al-Akbar, there would not be a need for Karbala. There would be no need for Ashura. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Oh Allah, I pray that you allow us to purify our souls and to understand what it takes to purify those souls. Ya Allah, I pray that you allow for us to understand jihad and understand the Jihad al-Akbar and give us the strength to be warriors every day to destroy ourselves. Oh Allah, allow each and every one of us to be the soldiers and representatives of Imam Sahib Asru Azaman. Allow us to be the beacons of light and allow us to bring justice into this unjust world. We pray all of this, Bihaqi Muhammad wa alayhi latar. We close out this session with a Surah Al-Fatiha, but before that, the loudest of salawats. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin.